Imagine opening an old jar of coins that has been sitting untouched for decades. Among the dull copper pieces, one small penny catches your eye. The year reads 1981, and beside the date you see the word Liberty. It looks like a coin that millions of people have handled in stores, pockets, and piggy banks. At first glance it seems like nothing more than 1 cent, the smallest unit of American currency. But what if that tiny coin is hiding a secret that most people never notice? What if a simple minting mistake, a rare variation in the mint mark, or an unusual strike at the United States Mint transformed that ordinary penny into a coin worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars? This is the fascinating history of the Liberty 1 cent 1981 Lincoln penny, a coin that shows how the smallest objects in circulation can carry surprising value and history. Before understanding why the 1981 Lincoln penny can become valuable, it is important to understand the long history of the coin itself. The Lincoln cent was first introduced in 1909 to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln. It was the first time in United States history that a real person appeared on a circulating coin. The designer of the coin was Victor David Brenner, whose portrait of Lincoln became one of the most recognizable images in American numismatics. On the obverse side of the coin appears Lincoln's profile facing right. Above the portrait are the words "In God We Trust," while the word Liberty appears to the left of Lincoln and the year of minting appears to the right. The reverse design of the Lincoln cent changed several times during its long history. From 1909 to 1958 the coin featured 2 wheat ears, which is why those earlier coins are known as wheat pennies. In 1959 the design changed to the Lincoln Memorial Building located in Washington, D.C. The memorial design remained in use for almost 50 years and was the design used on all 1981 pennies. Within the small depiction of the memorial, careful observers can even see the tiny statue of Lincoln sitting inside the building, which is a remarkable level of detail for such a small coin. By the time the year 1981 arrived, the Lincoln cent had already been circulating for more than 70 years. Billions of these coins were produced every year because pennies were used constantly in everyday transactions. The United States Mint produced the 1981 Lincoln penny at several facilities including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins produced in Philadelphia carried no mint mark, those produced in Denver carried the letter D, and proof coins produced for collectors in San Francisco carried the letter S. The production numbers for 1981 pennies were enormous. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced more than 7.4 billion coins while the Denver Mint produced more than 5.3 billion. Because of these large mintages, most 1981 pennies remain extremely common in circulation and are usually worth only their face value of 1 cent when they show heavy wear. However, coin collecting is a world where small details can make an enormous difference in value. While billions of ordinary coins were produced in 1981, a tiny fraction of them contain unusual characteristics that make them highly desirable to collectors. These characteristics include minting errors, die varieties, mint mark mistakes, unusual strikes, and coins preserved in exceptional condition. When these factors combine, a coin that once circulated as pocket change can become a valuable collectible point. One of the reasons the 1981 penny attracts attention from collectors is its place in the history of coin composition. For many decades the Lincoln penny was made from a copper alloy containing about 95% copper and 5% zinc. But during the early 1980s the rising price of copper created a problem for the United States Mint. The metal used to produce the penny began to cost more than the coin's face value. As a result, the Mint decided to change the composition of the coin in 1982 to a cheaper copper-plated zinc design. Because of this change, the 1981 penny represents one of the last full years of the traditional copper composition used in Lincoln cents. The copper content of the coin means that even its raw metal value is slightly higher than 1 cent based on modern copper prices. The metal in a single pre-1982 penny is worth around 3 cents. This small difference has led many people to save older copper pennies, believing that their metal value may become even higher in the future. Despite this interesting background, the real excitement surrounding the 1981 penny comes from minting errors and unusual varieties that can greatly increase its value. The minting process used to create coins involves high-speed machines striking metal blanks with engraved dies. Although the process is designed to produce identical coins, mistakes can happen for many reasons including worn dies, misaligned planchets, mechanical malfunctions, or human error. One of the most common types of error that can increase the value of a 1981 penny is the double die error. A double die occurs during the creation of the coin dies themselves. When the die receives more than one impression from the master hub in slightly different positions, the resulting coins show doubled images on parts of the design. On the 1981 penny, this doubling may appear in the word Liberty, in the motto "In God We Trust," or in the numbers of the date. Depending on the strength of the doubling and the coin's condition, double die examples can sell for around $50 to $150. Another fascinating minting mistake is the off-center strike. During the striking process, the blank coin must be perfectly positioned between the dies. If the blank is misaligned, the coin may be struck off-center, leaving part of the design missing and creating a curved blank space along the edge. The value of an off-center coin depends on how dramatic the error is and whether the date remains visible. Some 1981 pennies with strong off-center strikes have sold for hundreds of dollars because of their unusual appearance. Die cracks and die breaks represent another important category of errors. As coin dies are used repeatedly, the intense pressure of the minting process can cause the steel dies to develop tiny fractures. When a cracked die strikes a coin, the crack appears as a raised line on the coin's surface. Small die cracks may only add a few dollars of value, but larger cracks or breaks can make a coin much more interesting to collectors. Some dramatic die crack errors have sold for hundreds of dollars depending on their size and location on the coin. Another popular minor variety among collectors is the BIE error. This occurs when a die crack forms between the letters B and E in the word Liberty. The crack looks like the letter I, making the word appear to read Liberty. Although this error is relatively common and usually only adds a few dollars to the value of the coin, it remains a favorite among collectors because it is easy to recognize. Mint mark errors also play a major role in determining the value of certain coins. In earlier decades of coin production, mint marks were punched into the dies by hand rather than being included in the original die design. If the mint mark punch was applied more than once or slightly misaligned, the resulting coins show what collectors call a repunched mint mark. Some 1981 pennies from the Denver Mint display repunched mint marks where the letter D appears doubled or shifted. These varieties can sell for several $100s depending on the strength of the repunching and the coin's condition. Among the most valuable minting errors are coins struck on the wrong planchet. A planchet is the metal blank that will become a coin once it is struck by the dies. In rare cases, a blank intended for a different denomination accidentally enters the penny press. If a penny die strikes a blank intended for a dime or nickel, the resulting coin will have the wrong size, weight, or metal composition. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare and highly sought after by collectors. Some examples of 1981 pennies struck on dime planchets have been valued between $1,500 and $3,000. Another unusual minting error is the fold-over strike. This occurs when the coin blank partially folds during the striking process due to a malfunction in the press. The folded metal creates a dramatic appearance where part of the coin overlaps itself. One example of a 1981 Lincoln cent with a fold-over strike sold for more than $1,000 at auction because of its rarity and visual appeal. In addition to minting errors, the condition of a coin is one of the most important factors affecting its value. Coin collectors use a grading system that measures the amount of wear on a coin. Coins that have circulated heavily show scratches, worn details, and dull surfaces. Coins that were preserved carefully and never circulated may retain their original luster and sharp details. A coin graded in extremely high mint state condition is rare because very few coins remain perfectly preserved after decades. For example, a 1981 penny in average circulated condition might only be worth about 15 to 20 cents to a collector. But the same coin in high-grade mint state condition could be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. The color of copper coins also influences their value. Newly minted copper coins have a bright red appearance. Over time, exposure to air and handling causes the copper to darken into a brown color. Coin collectors classify pennies into three color categories known as red, red-brown, and brown. Red coins with original luster are usually the most valuable because they appear closest to their original condition. Proof coins produced in San Francisco in 1981 represent another important category. Proof coins are specially struck for collectors using polished dies and carefully prepared blanks. These coins have mirror-like surfaces and sharp details. The San Francisco Mint produced two varieties of proof pennies in 1981 known as Type 1 and Type 2, distinguished by differences in the style of the S mint mark. High-grade examples of these proof coins have sold for thousands of dollars. especially when they achieve perfect grades from professional grading services. Because the majority of 1981 pennies were produced in such large numbers, most examples remain common and carry little premium over face value. However, the excitement of coin collecting comes from the possibility that rare varieties or errors may still be hidden in circulation. Many collectors enjoy searching through rolls of coins obtained from banks in hopes of discovering unusual pennies. This activity, often called coin roll hunting, has become a popular hobby. Collectors carefully examine each coin under magnification looking for signs of doubling, die cracks, unusual mint marks, or striking errors. While the chances of finding a rare coin are small, the possibility keeps collectors motivated. Occasionally remarkable discoveries occur when someone examines old coins that have been stored away for many years. Jars of spare change, inherited collections, and forgotten coin boxes sometimes contain valuable coins that went unnoticed for decades. Because billions of pennies were produced and circulated widely, it is possible that rare examples remain hidden in everyday places. Auction records provide dramatic examples of how valuable certain 1981 pennies can become. Exceptional coins in high grades have sold for thousands of dollars, far exceeding their original face value. These sales demonstrate how rarity, condition, and collector demand combine to create significant value in the numismatic market. Professional grading services play an important role in the modern coin market. Companies specializing in coin authentication carefully examine coins to verify their authenticity and assign a grade based on condition. Coins certified by professional grading services are often sealed in protective holders and sold at higher prices because collectors trust the accuracy of the evaluation. The history of the Liberty 1-cent 1981 Lincoln penny is ultimately a story about how history, craftsmanship, and chance come together in the world of coin collecting. Every coin begins its life as a simple piece of metal struck by a machine. Yet tiny differences in the minting process can create unique variations that transform an ordinary coin into a rare collectible. For collectors, each penny represents more than its monetary value. It is a small artifact that carries the marks of the time in which it was produced. The designs on the coin reflect American history and national identity, while the errors and varieties reveal the complex processes involved in manufacturing currency. Even today, decades after they were produced, 1981 pennies continue to circulate in pockets, cash registers, and coin jars around the world. Most will remain ordinary pieces of currency worth only 1 cent. But hidden among them may be rare coins with unusual errors or exceptional preservation. For anyone willing to look closely, the possibility exists that a simple penny could reveal a fascinating history and perhaps even a surprising amount of value. In the world of coin collecting, that tiny copper coin with the word Liberty and the date 1981 is a reminder that sometimes the smallest objects hold the greatest mysteries and rewards. A single penny falls from your hand onto a table and makes a soft metallic sound. Most people would not even bend down to pick it up. After all, it is only 1 cent, the smallest denomination in American currency. But imagine if that same penny turned out to be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars because of a tiny mistake made during its creation. This possibility has fascinated collectors for decades and has led millions of people to search through jars of old coins and pocket change. Among these coins is the Liberty 1-cent 1981 Lincoln penny, a coin that on the surface appears ordinary but sometimes hides rare mint errors and unusual characteristics that can push its value far beyond its humble face value. Before understanding why certain 1981 pennies are valuable, it is important to understand the long history of the Lincoln cent itself. The Lincoln penny was first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln. It was the first circulating United States coin to feature the portrait of a real historical figure. The design was created by sculptor Victor David Brenner, who placed Lincoln's profile on the obverse side of the coin along with the word Liberty and the national motto "In God We Trust." On the reverse side of early versions were 2 wheat ears, symbolizing prosperity and agriculture in the United States. In 1959 the reverse design changed dramatically to feature the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. This change marked the beginning of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, which continued until 2008. The 1981 Lincoln penny belongs to this long-running series and carries the image of the Lincoln Memorial on its reverse side. For many Americans growing up in the 20th century, this was the most familiar design of the penny. The 1981 penny was produced at the Denver Mint, which is indicated by the small letter D located beneath the date on the obverse side of the coin. During 1981, the United States Mint struck billions of pennies to meet the demands of everyday commerce. One estimate suggests that more than 5 billion Lincoln cents were produced at the Denver Mint that year alone. Because of this enormous mintage, the majority of 1981 pennies remain extremely common today and usually circulate with no value beyond their face value of 1 cent. However, the history becomes far more interesting when collectors begin to look closely at these coins. In the world of numismatics, even a tiny variation or minting mistake can turn an ordinary coin into a valuable collectible. These mistakes are known as mint errors or varieties, and they occur during different stages of the coin production process. To understand these errors, one must first consider how coins are made. The process begins with the creation of dies, which are steel tools engraved with the design of the coin. These dies are used to strike blank metal discs known as planchets. When the planchet is placed between two dies and the press activates, the design is transferred onto the metal with enormous pressure. In high-speed minting operations, this process can happen hundreds of times per minute. Despite careful quality control, errors sometimes occur. A die may develop cracks, a planchet might not be positioned correctly, or a mint mark might be punched into the die more than once. When these mistakes happen, the coins produced may carry visible differences that attract collectors. One of the most famous types of error associated with the 1981 penny is the double die variety. A double die occurs during the creation of the die itself when the design is impressed more than once in slightly different positions. As a result, the coin struck by that die displays doubled images in the lettering, numbers, or portrait. On a 1981 penny, this doubling might appear in the date or in the letters of Liberty or In God We Trust. Depending on the clarity of the doubling and the condition of the coin, such pieces may sell for $50 to $150 or more in the collector market. Another intriguing error involves the mint mark. Before the 1990s, mint marks were punched manually into the coin dies rather than being included in the original master design. Because this was done by hand, sometimes the mint worker accidentally punched the mint mark more than once or slightly misaligned it. The result was a repunched mint mark, often abbreviated as RPM. On a 1981 penny, this might appear as a faint second D behind or beside the main mint mark. Strong examples of repunched mint marks have been known to sell for $200 to $400 depending on the clarity of the overlapping impressions and the coin's grade. Off-center strikes represent another dramatic type of mint error. When a coin blank is not positioned correctly between the dies during striking, the resulting coin may show part of the design missing. The coin often appears crescent-shaped with a blank section where the design failed to strike. The greater the misalignment, the more visually striking the coin becomes. As long as the date remains visible so the coin can be identified, collectors often pay high prices for these unusual pieces. Off-center 1981 pennies with strong misalignment have sometimes sold for around $900 or even more. Closely related to this are broad strike errors. Normally a coin is struck inside a collar that keeps the metal contained and forms the raised rim. If the collar fails to engage properly, the coin can expand outward during the strike, producing a piece that is wider and flatter than normal. These broad strike pennies may appear slightly distorted but still display the full design. Depending on the severity and condition, broad strike examples may bring values ranging from $20 to more than $100 among collectors. Another fascinating category of errors involves die cracks and die breaks. Because dies endure tremendous pressure during coin production, they eventually develop small fractures. When a cracked die strikes a coin, the metal flows into the crack and creates a raised line on the coin's surface. Some die cracks are subtle, appearing as thin lines across the coin. Others become dramatic breaks that cut across major design elements. In certain cases, large die cracks or breaks on 1981 pennies have sold for several $100s because of their unusual appearance and rarity. Collectors also enjoy searching for the quirky BIE error. This occurs when a small die crack forms between the letters B and E in the word Liberty. The crack fills with metal during striking and creates a raised line that resembles the letter I. As a result, the word Liberty appears to read Liberty. While these errors are generally less rare than other varieties, they remain popular among collectors and may add a few dollars to the value of the coin. Some errors are far more dramatic and rare. A fold-over strike occurs when part of the coin's metal folds over itself during the striking process. This usually happens due to mechanical problems in the minting press or improper feeding of the planchet. The folded section may partially cover the design, creating a layered effect that looks almost like the coin has been bent over itself. One such fold-over strike from the 1981 Lincoln Cent Series graded MS-66RB sold for more than $1,000 at auction, demonstrating the strong demand among collectors for unusual error coins. Another rare possibility is a coin struck on the wrong planchet. In the busy environment of a mint, it is possible for a blank intended for another denomination to accidentally enter the penny production line. If a penny design is struck on a smaller dime planchet or another incorrect blank, the resulting coin will look unusual in size and weight. These wrong planchet errors are extremely rare and can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on their condition and the type of planchet used. While errors can greatly increase the value of a coin, condition also plays a crucial role. Coin collectors use a grading scale from 1 to 70 to evaluate the state of preservation. Coins that have circulated for many years often show wear on Lincoln's hair, the lettering, and the details of the Lincoln Memorial. Such coins are typically worth only their face value unless they contain a rare error. On the other hand, coins that were never circulated and still retain their original mint luster can receive high mint state grades. These coins are often bright red in color because they have not yet oxidized. A high-grade 1981D penny with strong red coloration can be worth far more than a typical circulated coin. In fact, a pristine example graded MS-67 plus red has sold for more than $5,000, demonstrating how condition rarity can transform an ordinary penny into a highly valuable collectible. The color of copper coins is another factor that collectors consider when evaluating value. Newly minted copper coins display a brilliant red appearance. Over time, exposure to air causes the copper to darken into reddish-brown and eventually brown. Coins classified as red are generally more valuable because they retain their original mint appearance. Even small differences in color can influence the price collectors are willing to pay. The 1981D penny also represents an important moment in the history of American coinage. Only 1 year later, in 1982, the United States Mint changed the composition of the penny from mostly copper to a zinc core coated with copper. This change was made because the rising price of copper made it too expensive to produce pennies using the old composition. As a result, the 1981 penny stands as one of the final issues of the classic copper cent era. For many collectors, this historical significance adds another layer of interest. The coin represents the closing chapter of nearly a century of copper-based Lincoln cents that began in 1909. Holding a 1981D penny is therefore like holding a small piece of monetary history from a time just before the composition of the nation's most common coin changed forever. The popularity of Lincoln cents among collectors has created a vast community of hobbyists who spend years searching for rare varieties. Some collectors specialize in error coins, carefully examining thousands of pennies under magnification in hopes of finding a rare mistake. Others focus on assembling high-grade sets that include one example of every date and mint mark. The thrill of coin collecting often lies in the possibility that a valuable discovery might be hiding in everyday pocket change. Because billions of pennies were produced, many still circulate today. A person might unknowingly carry a rare error coin in their wallet without realizing its potential value. This sense of possibility has inspired countless stories of collectors finding rare coins in unexpected places. Some discoveries occur when people search through rolls of coins obtained from banks. Others happen when old jars of coins are finally sorted and examined after years of accumulation. In rare cases, valuable error coins have even been found in the change returned from ordinary purchases. The search for these hidden treasures is part of what makes coin collecting such an enduring hobby. Each coin carries the potential for discovery. A slight doubling in the lettering, an unusual mint mark, or an off-center strike might reveal a rare variety that has gone unnoticed for decades. In the case of the Liberty 1 cent 1981D Lincoln penny, most examples remain common and circulate simply as ordinary currency. Yet within the vast number of coins produced there are occasional pieces with fascinating errors and remarkable preservation. These rare specimens remind collectors that even the smallest coin can hold extraordinary value. The history of this penny is therefore not just about money but about curiosity and history. It reflects the complex processes of coin production, the dedication of collectors who study tiny details, and the excitement of discovering something rare in the most ordinary places. A coin worth only 1 cent can become a prized collectible because of a small mistake made decades ago at the mint. For those who take the time to examine their coins carefully, the humble 1981 D. Lincoln penny offers the possibility of hidden treasure. Somewhere in circulation there may still be examples waiting to be discovered, carrying subtle signs of minting errors that transform them from everyday change into valuable pieces of numismatic history. Imagine holding a tiny coin between your fingers, a coin so common that millions of people spend it every day without even thinking about it. The coin shows the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln, the word liberty beside his image, and the date 1987 with a small letter D beneath it. Most people would assume that this coin is worth only 1 cent. They might toss it into a jar of spare change or leave it forgotten in a drawer. But what if that ordinary-looking 1987 D. Lincoln penny was actually worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars? What if a tiny mistake made decades ago at the United States Mint turned that simple coin into a valuable collectible? The idea that a coin worth only 1 cent could secretly be worth a small fortune is one of the reasons coin collecting continues to fascinate people all over the world. The story of the Liberty 1 cent 1987 D. Lincoln penny begins with the long history of the Lincoln cent itself. The Lincoln penny first appeared in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the birth of Abraham Lincoln. Before that time, United States coins usually featured symbolic figures such as Lady Liberty rather than real historical individuals. The introduction of Lincoln's portrait marked a major change in American coin design. The coin's designer, Victor David Brenner, created a portrait that quickly became one of the most recognizable images in American currency. On the front side of the coin appears Lincoln's profile facing right. Above his head are the words "In God We Trust." To the left of the portrait appears the word liberty, and to the right appears the date of the coin. This design remained largely unchanged for decades and continued to appear on pennies long after the coin was first introduced. The reverse side of the penny changed several times during its history. The earliest Lincoln cents displayed 2 wheat ears on the reverse, which is why collectors call those coins wheat pennies. In 1959 the reverse design changed to the Lincoln Memorial Building in Washington, D.C. The memorial design remained in use until 2008, meaning the 1987 penny belongs to the Lincoln Memorial series. The Lincoln Memorial reverse design shows the grand building with columns and steps. Within the small image of the building, the statue of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial can actually be seen with magnification. This level of detail demonstrates the careful craftsmanship involved in producing even the smallest coins. By the year 1987, the Lincoln penny had already been circulating for nearly 80 years. The United States Mint continued to produce billions of pennies each year because they were used constantly in everyday transactions. In 1987 the coins were struck at several different mints including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The coin discussed here carries the letter D beneath the date, indicating that it was produced at the Denver Mint. The mint mark is an important detail for collectors because coins from different mints can have different values depending on rarity and demand. The Denver Mint produced an enormous number of pennies in 1987. Because of this large mintage, most 1987 D pennies are extremely common in circulation. A typical circulated coin might be worth only 1 cent or perhaps a few cents to a collector. However, coins preserved in excellent condition or coins that display rare minting errors can be worth far more. In fact, uncirculated 1987 D pennies may sell for several dollars or even over $100 depending on their grade. The reason some pennies become valuable while others remain ordinary lies in the details of the minting process. Coins are produced using powerful presses that strike metal blanks known as planchets with engraved dies. These dies contain the design of the coin. When the press strikes the planchet, the design is transferred to the metal with great force. Ideally, every coin produced by this process should look exactly the same. In reality, however, the minting process involves machinery, human oversight, and repeated use of metal dies. Because of this, small mistakes sometimes occur. These mistakes are known as mint errors, and collectors often prize them because they are unusual and rare. One of the most famous varieties of the 1987 D penny is the repunched mint mark error. Before 1990, the mint mark was not part of the original die design. Instead, mint workers punched the letter representing the mint into the die by hand. If the mint mark was not placed correctly the first time, the worker might punch it again to correct the position. When this happened, the two punches sometimes overlapped slightly. The result was a coin with a mint mark that appears doubled. This variety is known as the 1987 D over D repunched mint mark. Collectors often look at the mint mark with magnification to see whether a second faint D appears beneath or beside the main letter. This variety has become one of the most sought after 1987 penny errors. High-grade examples have sold for hundreds or even more than $1,000 depending on condition. One auction example of this repunched mint mark variety graded MS67 sold for around $1,800. Another error that can increase the value of a 1987 penny is the double die error. A double die occurs during the creation of the coin dies themselves. When the master hub impresses the design onto the die more than once in slightly different positions, the resulting coins display doubled images. On a 1987 penny, this doubling might appear in the date, in the word liberty, or in the motto "In God We Trust." The letters may appear slightly duplicated or show a shadow effect. Depending on how strong the doubling is, these coins may sell for $50, $100, or even several $100s in excellent condition. Another fascinating error occurs when a coin is struck off-center. During the minting process, the planchet must be positioned perfectly between the dies. If the blank shifts out of position, the design will be struck partially off the coin. The result is a coin with a blank curved area along the edge where the design is missing. Off-center coins are visually dramatic and highly collectible. The value of these coins depends on how much of the design is missing and whether the date remains visible. Some off-center 1987 pennies have sold for between $50 and $500 depending on the severity of the misalignment. Another interesting error sometimes found on 1987 pennies involves unplated planchets. Beginning in 1982, the United States Mint switched from a copper alloy composition to a zinc core coated with a thin layer of copper. Occasionally a planchet entered the coin press before receiving its copper coating. When this happened, the resulting coin appeared silver or gray instead of the normal copper color. These coins are known as unplated planchet errors. Depending on their condition and the extent of the missing plating, these coins may sell for $20 to $150 or more. Condition is another major factor that determines the value of any coin. Coin collectors use a grading system that measures how well a coin has been preserved. Coins that circulated heavily often show worn surfaces and faded details. Coins that were preserved carefully and never entered circulation may retain their original shine and sharp details. The highest grades in the mint state category are extremely rare because very few coins survive decades without wear. For example, a 1987 D penny graded MS68 with bright red color has sold for about $2,000 at auction because of its exceptional condition. Even though the majority of 1987 pennies remain common, collectors still enjoy searching through rolls of coins in hopes of discovering rare varieties. This activity is known as coin roll hunting. Enthusiasts obtain rolls of pennies from banks and examine each coin carefully under magnification. The excitement of this hobby lies in the possibility that a rare coin might still be hiding among ordinary pocket change. Because billions of pennies were produced, rare varieties may still be waiting to be discovered. Some collectors focus specifically on mint mark varieties such as the repunched mint mark. Others search for dramatic mint errors such as off-center strikes or double dies. Each discovery adds to the knowledge of the coin series and sometimes leads to the identification of new varieties. Occasionally remarkable discoveries occur when someone examines coins stored in old jars or inherited collections. Because pennies are often saved in large quantities, valuable examples may remain hidden for decades before someone recognizes their significance. Auction records show how dramatically coin values can increase when rarity and condition combine. A coin that once circulated as pocket change may eventually appear in an auction catalog and attract intense interest from collectors. In rare cases, unusual errors involving the word liberty itself can attract enormous attention. One reported example involved a dramatic die break affecting the Liberty inscription on a 1987 D penny. Only a few examples were known, and a high-grade specimen reportedly sold for an extraordinary price in the collector's market. Stories like these inspire collectors to examine their coins carefully. The possibility that a simple penny could hold significant value creates excitement for both experienced numismatists and beginners. The Lincoln Penny series remains one of the most widely collected coin series in the world. Because the coins are inexpensive and easy to find, many people begin their coin collecting journey with pennies. Over time they learn to recognize different mint marks, design varieties, and mint errors. For collectors, the 1987 D penny represents more than just a small coin. It is part of a long historical tradition of American coinage. The coin reflects the technology of the minting process, the economic conditions of its time, and the artistic legacy of the Lincoln cent design. Even today, millions of these pennies continue to circulate. Most are spent without a second thought, but a few may hold hidden value waiting to be discovered. A slight doubling in the lettering, a tiny extra impression in the mint mark, or a dramatic striking error could transform a simple coin into a collector's treasure. This possibility is what makes coin collecting so fascinating. A coin worth only 1 cent may contain a story of history, craftsmanship, and chance. The Liberty 1 cent 1987 D Lincoln penny is a perfect example of how something small and ordinary can become extraordinary when viewed through the eyes of collectors. For anyone willing to look closely, the next valuable discovery might already be sitting in a pocket, a jar of spare change, or a forgotten coin collection. And that humble penny with Lincoln's portrait and the word Liberty might turn out to be far more valuable than anyone ever imagined.